Let's solve this question. This is where there are some workers who were first grouped according to occupation. That means occupation number 2, all of the workers were grouped together. Occupation number 1, all of them were grouped together like this. What happened after this grouping? For every single occupation, this table here that you have, it shows percentage of respondents who indicated certain things. So they would indicate feeling satisfaction in their occupation, which you see here as the first column. They indicated being in a positive mood with respect to their occupation at the time of the survey. So positive mood when the survey was taken. And the third thing was whether they have a sense of purpose in their occupation, which is the last column here. So what this means is, if I talk about occupation 3 here, then 53% of all the respondents said that they were satisfied with their occupation. Out of again all of these respondents, 55% said at the time of the survey that they were in a positive mood with respect to their occupation. And finally, out of all of these, 55% said that they had a sense of purpose in their occupation. Actually, by just looking at these numbers, you should get a feeling that all of these 3 categories are not disjoint, because if I add this is beyond 150%, which is impossible if they were disjoint. So what this really means is that I can have overlap here in the 3 categories, which means a single respondent can say yes to multiple things, that I am satisfied also, I am in a positive mood also, and I have a sense of purpose also. So either someone could be in all 3 common regions or just in 2, or also here in a single category. So this is allowed. Visualize it through this Venn diagram. Now, I have completely understood what this is. I also understand that overlap is possible. And now I've mentioned it as well. I don't think we have anything extra that we can think of here. Let's just go and see what the question is asking. So here is our question. It has 3 statements, and you want to select yes for the statement which is correct based on all the information. So it must be true, then you select yes, otherwise you select no. So I'm going to look at these statements one by one. If you see the first one separately, let's see here. This says there is a positive correlation between what? The percentages for satisfaction and those for purpose. The percentage is for purpose. So I have these 2 quantities between which I have to see whether there is a positive correlation or not. And what is a positive correlation? It means that if I see them both on a graph like this, satisfaction and purpose this way, then I should be seeing a trend which is going upward, a general trend. Again, these don't have to be exactly going upward. There can be dips here and there, but the general trend should be upward. This is when I will say it's a yes, otherwise no. Now, right now, I don't have a graph to read this value. Right now, I have been given data in the form of a table. So the way we are going to work on this is we will sort our table based on one of these 2. So suppose I sort it by S, the satisfaction ratings. Then that way my satisfaction will already be in increasing order as I see my values from top to bottom. Correspondingly, I will then see what is happening to my purpose column. If the purpose column also seems to be increasing as I go, then it will be positive correlation and I will mark yes. But if I find that it is actually, decreasing values and I have the greater values on top, that will hint negative correlation. It will be a no. Similarly, if it is sometimes increasing, decreasing, and I see no pattern and then, there's no correlation, in that case also your answer will be no. So my criteria is set. I'm going to go sort by S and I'll see what's happening with purpose. Let's take this to the Excel where we can really sort our data. Perfect, then here we are. Let's follow the first step, which is sorting it by the satisfaction column. And where do I see that? Here. I'll simply click on this and sort my values. Now I see that because of the sorting, obviously these values are increasing as I go from top to bottom. And then what was your second step? To just see the purpose column and see what is happening as a result. When I look at these values now, the purpose values, look how I went from 39, 44, 55. So yes, a steady increase, but then there's a dip here from 55 to 46, and after that again there is an increase staying constant at the end. So if a general trend I see, then yes, these values are increasing. Never be very fixated about one single dip here and there. It is absolutely okay. If you try to see this on a number line, if you try to plot the values also on a graph, then obviously satisfaction will be sorted because I have already sorted them, so it will be in increasing order. Put your purpose values 39, 44 slightly above, 55 slightly above, then 46 comes down, then 74 and 74. So look how the general trend is definitely upward. And so based on what I understood, that if I see an increasing trend, then I will mark yes to my statement. And that is why I have the answer for the first one. Let's go back. Here we are. Let us mark yes for this one. Okay, this now completes our first statement. We will now look at the second statement. If you found the analysis of this dataset helpful, then hit that like button so that other GMAT aspirants can also learn from it. And to stay tuned with such content, hit the subscribe button below. Now, to take your learning to the next level, we have put together a free trial in which you can experience content in all the sections tested on GMAT Focus Edition. For example, you can build your CR pre-thinking skills, you can learn how to approach statistics questions in graphics interpretation as part of DI, you can learn everything about linear inequalities as tested on the GMAT Focus Edition, and a lot of other content. The link for this is in the description. Now, let's get back to the question at hand. Here we go. This is a very similar statement to the first one, just that now we're saying there's a negative correlation between two things. Percentages for positive mood, that's one thing, and purpose is the second. So again, I'm going to repeat the same process. I'll take the positive mood column and I will sort that. You're free to sort any one of them, by the way. So I'm sorting by positive mood, which will make sure my values are increasing order here. Then correspondingly, I will see what's happening in the purpose column. So my criteria is set. I just have to repeat the process this time for two new columns. Again, if I also try to visualize it this way, say my positive mood is this time on the x-axis. So because of the sorting, it will be here arranged properly. Now my purpose, if I see that the trend line is downward, then yes, it will be negative correlation, otherwise not. So let's just take this to the Excel and get cracking on numbers. And here we are. First step will be sort by the positive mood column. So I'm simply going to come here, sort. This is done as my first step. And clearly my values are in increasing order now. Then I'll observe the purpose column, which is this one, and see the general trend. So see what's happening here. 74 to 55, I see a dip. 55 to 46, yes, there's a dip. Another dip till 39. Then just a small increase here. So these two seem to be going wrong. But I know I don't care about specific points. So overall, I can see that as I am coming down, my values are decreasing. And because of this, I am sure that the answer to this statement is yes, this is indeed negative correlation. If you plot positive mood here on the x-axis will be these values. Now you plot 74, 74, then you have 55, 46, 39, and 44. So you can see how the general trend is downward, which is exactly how negative correlation works. So I'm done. Let's go back and mark. Here we are. So this is also a yes, there is negative correlation. Finally, we'll mark this one here and look at the third and the final statement. At this point, let me ask you this. Could you have arrived at the approach of solving this question with this level of clarity had you not spent the effort in thoroughly understanding the information presented? Such is the power of the process of owning the dataset. And because this skill may not come naturally to many of you, we have created a course architecture that ensures that we teach you this skill through every guided quiz in the e-GMAT DI course, and we reinforce the same in every practice quiz. In fact, in the table analysis modules in the GITA course, we teach you how to get comfortable with the table so that you can process it in the most efficient way. We serve more than 65 specially curated questions at the right progression so that you learn various aspects of the table analysis questions, including the process skills of inference, translate, and visualize. Thus, throughout the DI course, through around 500 questions, you will learn such process skills so that you can also comfortably use the owning the dataset approach. Let's now get back to the solution at hand. And here we are. This says a majority of all respondents who indicated feeling satisfaction also indicated having a sense of purpose. So here I'm trying to find an overlap between two categories. First of all, I'm only talking about those who said they felt satisfaction, so the satisfaction circle. And then the other circle, I have the purpose circle, right? These are two that I know. I'm not thinking about the third one right now. We're not talking about that. They are saying that majority of this satisfaction circle is also a part of the purpose circle, which really means to say that the majority of this S circle is here in the common region. And I have to see if I can tell that based on all the information. Now, when you think about overlap, it should already strike you, we know overlap is possible, but there is no way for us to tell how much exactly is the overlap between any two categories. This is something that will change occupation to occupation. In some cases where the sum of these two is way beyond 100, I know there will be an overlap. In some cases, maybe that overlap guaranteed will be more than 50% of satisfaction. But in other cases, you may have completely disjoint sets so that the overlap in that case is actually zero. There is no way for me to find a total of satisfaction, a total of purpose for all the occupations, and then to see that the majority of satisfaction is a part of purpose as well. So I already have this feeling that it's impossible for me to give that answer very clearly. But still, I will delve deeper here and give you some examples to make you comfortable with this. Let's take examples. So suppose I look at one of these occupations, suppose I look at this one, 6. Then I know that 31% of the respondents said that they were satisfied. So if I create this circle, this is 31%. That means 69% of the respondents were not satisfied, right? That's again something I have. Now I had this purpose people, 44 of them, 44%. I want to see whether majority of this 31% is also common with the purpose circle. But how will I tell anything like that? I can very well have both of these circles completely disjoint. Why can I have that? Because the sum of 31 and 44, that's not even reaching 100%. It's okay for them to be separate. Problem would be if I had, the sum reaching more than 100, so I know there is some overlap for sure. But this possibility here means it's possible to have zero overlap also. So forget about majority of S being a part of P. Here actually none of S is a part of P. So this is where I'll have no as my answer. On the flip side, there's another possibility also that this entire S circle is a part of purpose, in which case I have not just the majority, but all of the people who said satisfaction, all of them also said they have this sense of purpose. So in this case, I can get a yes also. So my answer depends on the overlap that is there between these categories, and I have no idea about where that overlap is. Are they disjoint? Do they have elements in common? Had you looked at occupation 2, then because satisfaction purpose, the sum goes beyond 100, I know there is some overlap for sure. This time then I'll have to see whether majority of this, which means, more than half, so 38% at least should be the overlap. If that is the case, my answer will be yes every time. So think about it. So if I do 76 plus 74, this is equal to how much? This is 150%. That means 50% at least has to be the overlap between them. You can't go beyond 100, no. So in this case, if 50 is the overlap, then yes, out of the satisfaction people, 50% people have purpose at least. So this is a case where my answer is a definite yes. But again, that is something which is changing occupation to occupation. I took 2 examples to show you the extremes that are there. One case where you can say nothing, one where you were sure. So in such cases, and then you could have something in the middle also. Say I take 55 and 46. What's the sum of these two values? This is going to be 101%. That means at least 1% overlap has to be there. At least. There could be more overlap. If I have just that 1% overlap, my answer will be no, because it's not majority of 55. But on the other hand, I can have half of these. What's half of 55? 27.5. Suppose I take the overlap to be 28. Then that is a possibility. No, the rest of the people that will be left, I'll cover them with positive mood. So I can get yes also. So I'm getting mixed answers for these different occupations. It is happening because we had no idea about the overlap. And therefore here when I come back, I will mark no, this is not something that I can be sure of. And this way we are done. Let's now nicely summarize this question. We began by completely understanding the data set. Here we took examples as we were reading this. We took the example of occupation 3 to truly understand what these percentages represented. And by looking at these numbers, we could also infer that there is an overlap among these categories. They are not disjoint. Of course, there can be cases where there is no overlap, but this definitely allows for it. And this is what we visualized here in the Venn diagram. After we completely understood what the data was representing, we went into our statements one by one, where two of the statements were about correlation. One was about positive correlation between two quantities, and the next one was about negative correlation between two other columns. So here we just used our conceptual understanding of how correlation works. We decided what our approach is going to be before we went into the Excel to really sort and find the answers. So this is something you always have to do, determine your approach before you jump into data. Then finally, this last statement came in where we talked about the overlap between two categories here, two of the columns. But when we first understood the data set, there itself we had understood that yes, there is an overlap, but there's no way for us to exactly tell how much overlap there is. The question is asking about total overlap, although the information given is about one occupation at a time, and different occupations were behaving differently. I was getting a sure yes in one, I was getting yes or no mixed in other places. So there was no way for us to decide what the overlap is and give an overall answer, which therefore made just the third statement that was not correct. Both of the other two were correct. So the same steps we followed as always: owning the data set first, looking at your statements one by one, deciding your approach, then getting into the data and finding your answer.